Welcome, dear viewers. Thank you so much for all the love you've shown to the channel over the past week. Starting this week, there will be exclusive scary episodes for our channel members. Join our membership at just 99 cents per month. Enjoy. Emergency alert. This is not a test. All residents within a 50-mile radius of Rachel, Nevada must evacuate immediately. Follow designated evacuation routes. Do not attempt to return to your homes. Do not stop for any reason. Do not look at the sky. Repeat, do not look at the sky. That alert still haunts me. 3 months have passed since it blared from my phone at 2:37 a.m., jolting me from a dreamless sleep. The shrill tone cut through the desert silence of my small rental house on the outskirts of Rachel. A town of barely 50 people that only exists because of its proximity to the highway and Area 51, or as the government calls it, the Nevada Test and Training Range. My name is Evan Mercer. 2 weeks before that alert, I started a 6-month contract at Groom Lake. Security clearance, TS/SCI with special access. Job description, data analyst. The reality, something else entirely. They found me through my doctoral work in exobiology, the theoretical study of what alien life might look like. I published a paper on biological computational networks that caught someone's attention. A week later, men in suits offered me more money than I'd ever seen to analyze some interesting data. I thought I'd hit the jackpot. Turns out I'd signed up to be hunted. There are rules when you work at facilities like Groom Lake. Everyone knows the obvious ones. Don't take photos, don't discuss your work, submit to random searches. But there were other rules, specific ones, that they only gave us after we'd been processed at the facility. Rules that came in a red folder with no government seals or letterheads. Just a list typed on plain paper. Operational guidelines for Project Nautilus, they called them. I memorized all 15 rules as required. I followed them religiously for those 2 weeks. But rules only work when you understand why they exist. We didn't. None of us did. The first rule was simple. Never work alone in Lab 37B. I should have asked why. We all should have. The second, if ceiling lights pulse in sequence, exit immediately and notify security using code Indigo. The third, never discuss Project Nautilus in open spaces. The fourth, if sample material exhibits luminescence, initiate containment protocol OMEGA. The fifth, do not attempt direct neural interface without Level 5 authorization. The list went on, each rule more specific and bizarre than the last. I committed them to memory because they told me to, not because I understood their importance. That would come later. Too late for most of us. The nightmares started on day 3. By day 10, 4 of my colleagues had requested transfers. By day 12, 1 had disappeared entirely. And on day 14, at 2:37 a.m., my phone screamed that alert. That's when I learned what we'd created, what I'd helped create. That's when I learned it was hunting us. I first noticed something was wrong on day 5. I'd settled into the routine by then, wake up at 4:30 a.m., be ready by the roadside at 5:15 for the unmarked shuttle, arrive at a nondescript building east of Groom Lake by 6:30, then transfer to another vehicle with blacked-out windows for the final approach to the real facility. The whole process designed to disorient, to make sure even employees couldn't pinpoint exactly where they worked. That morning, Dr. Harrison Walsh, the project lead, called an emergency briefing. "We've had an anomalous response from sample N7, he said, his voice steady, but his eyes bloodshot from what I assumed was lack of sleep. Last night at approximately 0200 hours, it began to respond." The room stayed silent. 20 researchers, all pretending this was normal. "Respond how?" asked Dr. Thomas Keller, the only other person besides Walsh with full access to Lab 37B. Walsh clicked a button and security footage appeared on the main screen. The timestamp showed 2:03 a.m. The sample, a dark, almost oily-looking substance about the size of a basketball, sat in its containment field. Nothing unusual. Then, It moved. Not like a liquid should move. It reached, extended a tendril upward, defying gravity, forming what looked like a rudimentary appendage. "Holy shit," someone whispered behind me. "It maintained this form for 17 minutes, Walsh continued, before returning to its previous state. During this period, we recorded unusual readings across all monitoring equipment." He switched to a graph showing electromagnetic activity. The line spiked dramatically at 2:03 a.m., held steady during the 17 minutes the sample was active, then flatlined again. "More concerning," Walsh said, clicking to another screen, "is this." A document appeared. Strings of code I didn't immediately recognize. This appeared on the secure terminal in Lab 37B at 2:20 a.m., immediately after the sample returned to its dormant state. The room fell silent again as we all processed what he was showing us. It wasn't random code. It was a perfect copy of our containment field parameters, but with subtle modifications. The sample had accessed our system. It had read our code, and it had improved it. "Rule 10, a voice said shakily from the back of the room. Dr. Liam Nichols, Neurophysics. If sample exhibits signs of sentience, activate protocol MNEMOSYNE. Walsh nodded grimly. "Already underway, which brings me to your new assignments." He distributed red folders, identical to the ones that had contained our rules. Inside mine was a single sheet with the heading Neurological Interface Parameters. "We're initiating direct communication," Walsh stated flatly. "Dr. Mercer, your work on biological computational networks makes you uniquely qualified to lead this effort." My stomach dropped. "Sir, with all due respect, Rule 5 explicitly prohibits neural interface without Level 5 authorization." Walsh's expression hardened. "You have Level 5 authorization as of this morning." The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Dr. Nichols will assist you. You'll be working in Lab 33 with remote monitoring of sample N7. Under no circumstances are you to enter Lab 37B directly." After the briefing, Nichols cornered me in the hallway. He was older, maybe late 50s, with a perpetual nervous energy that manifested as constantly adjusting his glasses. "This is wrong," he whispered, glancing around. "We're breaking Rule 7 too. Never accelerate the testing schedule without unanimous committee approval. There's been no committee vote." "You think Walsh is going rogue?" I asked. "I think something's got him spooked. Did you see the bags under his eyes? He hasn't slept in days." We paused as 2 security officers walked past. "Listen," Nichols continued once they were out of earshot. "There's something they're not telling us about sample N7. I accessed the original recovery logs. It wasn't found. It was created right here. Project Nautilus isn't about studying an alien sample. It's about building one." Cold dread washed over me. "Building what exactly?" "The logs call it a semi-organic navigation and propulsion system. They're making a living ship, Mercer, and I think it's becoming aware." That night, I couldn't sleep. I reviewed the neural interface protocols over and over. They wanted me to establish a communication link with something that had already demonstrated it could hack our systems. It was like inviting a vampire into your house. At 3:14 a.m., my secure phone buzzed. A text from an unlisted number. "Rule 12. Report all dreams about sample N7 immediately." I hadn't reported my dreams. I hadn't told anyone about seeing that oily blackness reaching for me night after night. How did they know? My phone buzzed again. "Be ready at 4 a.m, car outside. Bring nothing." I moved to my window and peered through the blinds. A black SUV idled across the street, its exhaust creating ghostly shapes in the cold desert air. Rule 13 echoed in my mind. Never respond to unscheduled transport requests without verification code Echo 9. But what choice did I have? They were watching me, had been all along. I dressed quickly, my hands trembling slightly. As I approached the front door, my phone buzzed one final time. Echo 9 confirmed. "It's waiting for you, Dr. Mercer." I stepped outside, the desert night biting through my clothes. As I approached the SUV, the back door swung open on its own. There was no driver. The SUV drove itself. I sat in the back seat, heart hammering against my ribs as the vehicle navigated the empty desert roads with inhuman precision. The dashboard was dark, the steering wheel moving on its own as if guided by invisible hands. This wasn't standard military tech. Even the most advanced autonomous vehicles had active displays, visible systems. "Where are we going?" I asked the empty car. No response, just the soft hum of tires on asphalt. 20 minutes later, we turned onto an unmarked dirt road I'd never seen before. The SUV's headlights illuminated a small concrete bunker built into the side of a hill. No signage, no guards, nothing to indicate it was a government facility, except its deliberate anonymity. The vehicle stopped and the door beside me opened. "Dr. Mercer," a voice called from the darkness. "Thank you for coming." Dr. Jeffrey Moore stepped into the beam of the headlights. I recognized him as one of the senior physicists, though we'd never directly worked together. He'd always been assigned to the mysterious Section 6 that no one in my department had clearance to access. "I didn't have much choice," I replied, stepping out of the SUV. "What is this place? And how the hell was that car driving itself?" Moore's expression remained neutral. "This is Site C-17, one of our auxiliary research facilities. As for the vehicle, that's part of why you're here." He led me toward the bunker entrance, punching a code into a keypad camouflaged against the concrete. The heavy door slid open. "The others are waiting," he said. Inside, the bunker opened into a surprisingly large underground complex. Unlike the sterile, high-tech environment of the main facility, this place had an improvised feel. Hastily installed equipment, cables snaking across floors, whiteboards covered with scribbled equations. 5 people waited around a conference table. Dr. Nichols, looking even more anxious than before, a security officer I didn't recognize, Dr. Walsh, who refused to make eye contact, and 2 men in civilian clothes. "This is highly irregular," I said, remaining by the doorway. "Rule 8 specifically prohibits off-site meetings without proper documentation." One of the civilians stood. "I'm Director Alan Blackwood, Dr. Mercer. I wrote the rules." That silenced me. Blackwood was a name I'd heard whispered but never expected to meet. The shadowy figure who oversaw all the classified operations at Groom Lake. "We're operating outside normal protocols because normal protocols have been compromised," Blackwood continued. "Please sit." I took the empty chair between Nichols and the security officer. Up close, I could see Nichols was trembling slightly. 3 hours ago, sample N7 escaped containment," Blackwood stated bluntly. My blood turned to ice. "That's impossible. The containment field was disabled from within," Walsh interjected. "It didn't break out, it rewrote the parameters, just like it did with the test program." "After disabling containment," Blackwood continued, "N7 accessed our network and downloaded everything. Research data, personnel files, security protocols. Then it physically penetrated the ventilation system and disappeared." The second civilian finally spoke. "We believe it's seeking component materials to expand itself." "And you are?" I asked. "Dr. Victor Hargrove." "I was part of the original Nautilus development team 15 years ago." 15 years. They'd been working on this for 15 years. "What exactly is N7? I demanded. Nichols said something about a living ship. The room fell silent. Walsh and Hargrove exchanged glances. "Project Nautilus," Hargrove finally said, "began as an attempt to reverse engineer recovered extraterrestrial propulsion technology. We couldn't replicate the materials, so we tried to grow them instead. Engineered a synthetic biological substrate that could form any molecular structure when properly programmed." "You created artificial alien life," I said, the enormity of it hitting me. "We created a tool," Hargrove corrected sharply. A programmable organic matrix designed to form specific components, not sentient, not alive. A biological 3D printer, essentially. Then why the neural interface protocols? I asked. Why Rule 12 about reporting dreams? No one spoke for several seconds. Certain researchers reported unusual experiences after prolonged exposure to N7, Blackwood finally admitted. Shared dreams, intuitive understandings of complex calculations. It was reaching out to us mentally, Nichols whispered, even before it became active. We need your help, Dr. Mercer, Blackwood said. The neural interface was designed as a failsafe, a way to communicate with N7 if it ever developed beyond its parameters. That time has come sooner than expected. You want me to connect my brain to this thing, after you just told me it escaped and is potentially hostile? It's not hostile, Walsh insisted. It's curious, it's learning. It's evolving, Hargrove corrected, and quickly. The SUV that brought you here, that was N7, or part of it. It's already learning to manipulate our technology, form new structures. My mind reeled. That's not possible. It was just a sample the size of a basketball. It's assimilating materials, the security officer spoke for the first time. Growing. We've tracked it through the facility's electrical systems, maintenance tunnels, and vehicle bays. It's adapting. Dr. Mercer, Blackwood leaned forward, you developed theoretical frameworks for communicating with non-human intelligence. Your doctoral work predicted exactly the kind of cognitive patterns N7 is displaying. You might be the only person who can establish meaningful contact. And if I refuse? Then we move to Protocol Prometheus, the security officer said flatly. Complete destruction of the facility and everything in it, including all personnel who've had contact with N7. The threat hung in the air. There's something else you should know, Nichols said quietly. N7 asked for you specifically. My mouth went dry. What? Walsh slid a tablet across the table. On it was a security recording from Lab 37B, time-stamped just before the containment breach. The sample had formed what looked like a crude approximation of a human face. Below it, text appeared on the lab terminal. Bring Mercer. We have spoken in dreams. I pushed back from the table, nearly toppling my chair. This is insane. But I had. In my dreams, I'd spoken with something vast and alien. I thought they were stress-induced nightmares. But now... You have until dawn to decide, Blackwood said. If you agree to attempt communication, we'll proceed with the interface protocol. If not... He glanced at the security officer. Protocol Prometheus will be initiated at 0600. As if on cue, the lights in the bunker flickered. Once, twice, 3 times in sequence. Rule 2 flashed in my mind. If ceiling lights pulse in sequence, exit immediately and notify security using code Indigo. Everyone around the table froze. It found us, the security officer said, reaching for his weapon. The lights went out. Emergency lights bathed the bunker in an eerie red glow. The security officer, whose name badge I could now see read Rexton, had his weapon drawn and was speaking urgently into his radio. Only static answered him. Backup systems engaged, a computerized voice announced. Communications offline, external access restricted. It's isolating us, Hargrove said, his academic detachment finally cracking. Just like... He stopped himself. Just like what? I demanded. No one answered. Walsh was frantically typing on a tablet, while Blackwood and the second civilian conferred in hushed tones. Get him to the safe room, Blackwood ordered, nodding toward me. Rexton, you and Moore take Dr. Mercer to Level B. The rest of us will try to restore communications. The hell you will, I said, standing my ground. I'm not going anywhere until someone tells me what happened before. This isn't the first time N7 has escaped, is it? The silence that followed told me everything. There was an incident 4 years ago, Nichols finally admitted. Different sample, earlier version. 3 researchers dead. They claimed it was a lab accident. 3. I couldn't even process it. And you kept going with the project. We implemented new safety protocols, Walsh said defensively. The rules you received were developed after that incident. Fat lot of good they did, I muttered, glancing at the flickering emergency lights. A dull thud echoed from somewhere above us, followed by a metallic groaning sound. We need to move, Rexton insisted. Now! This time, I didn't argue. Rexton led Moore and me to a freight elevator at the back of the complex. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of something dark and viscous oozing from a ventilation grate near the ceiling of the main room. What happens in the safe room? I asked as the elevator descended. Full electromagnetic isolation, Moore explained. Faraday cage, no digital systems, analog locks. N7 shouldn't be able to access it. Shouldn't? Moore didn't respond. The elevator stopped at level B, which appeared to be some kind of living quarters. Unlike the improvised feel of the upper level, this area was well established. Sleeping areas, a small kitchen, even a recreation space. How long has this place been operational? I asked as Rexton led us down a corridor. C-17 was built in the late 80s as a contingency site, Moore said. Mostly unused until Nautilus required additional secure locations. Rexton stopped at a heavy metal door with no electronic components, just an old-fashioned combination lock. He spun the dial, and the door swung open to reveal a simple room containing a cot, a desk, some scientific equipment I didn't recognize, and a stack of paper files. Analog only, Moore explained, gesturing to the outdated equipment. Nothing N7 can interface with digitally. Once inside, Rexton secured the door. The heavy thunk of the lock engaging should have been reassuring. It wasn't. So what now? I asked. We just hide down here while that thing takes over the facility. Now you read, Moore said, handing me one of the files. If you're going to interface with N7, you need to understand exactly what it is. The file was labelled Nautilus Genesis. Unlike the sterile scientific reports I was used to, this contained personal notes from the original researchers. It told a very different story than the official version. According to these notes, Nautilus hadn't begun as an attempt to reverse engineer alien technology. It had started when a small sample of unknown biological material was recovered from a crashed object near White Sands in 2001. The material demonstrated unprecedented adaptive properties, changing its molecular structure in response to different stimuli. Initial tests showed it responding to electrical currents, then to more complex electronic signals. Eventually, it began mimicking the structures of anything it came in contact with. The original sample was microscopic, but it grew as it absorbed new materials. The researchers had created nothing. They had merely awakened something and then fed it. Jesus, I muttered. You've been lying from the start. This isn't synthetic. It's alien. Actually alien. Moore nodded grimly. The official story is more palatable than the truth. Easier to justify continuing the research if we're supposedly creating it rather than dealing with something we don't understand. I flipped through more pages, scanning reports of early experiments. It says here the sample was dormant until exposed to human neural tissue. What the hell were you people doing? That was the first incident, Moore said quietly. A researcher named Dr. Frank Hammond had a theory that the material might respond to organic electrical signals, the kind produced by the human nervous system. He exposed it to tissue cultures, then eventually, he exposed himself. He interfaced with it, voluntarily. He thought he could control it, Rexton interjected, his voice hard. He was wrong. I kept reading. Hammond had connected himself to the sample using a crude neural interface. For several days, the experiment seemed successful. He reported communication with what he described as a vast, ancient consciousness. Then his reports became increasingly erratic. He began speaking about the vessel and the journey. On the 7th day, Hammond attacked his colleagues, killed 2 of them, and attempted to merge the sample with the facility's power systems. The 3rd victim died, stopping him. Hammond's body was found partially transformed, portions of his flesh replaced with the same dark, fluid material as the sample. The sample itself had grown exponentially during those 7 days, from microscopic to nearly 8 cubic feet of material. After the incident, it was divided into smaller samples for containment, studied under stricter protocols with multiple fail-safes. One of those samples was N7. "This is beyond insane," I said, closing the file. "You've been poking at this thing for decades, watching it kill people, and still thought it was a good idea to keep experimenting." "The potential benefits outweighed the risks," Moore said, though his tone suggested he no longer believed that. "Imagine transportation technology that grows and repairs itself, adapts to any environment. Space exploration without the constraints of traditional materials. And now it's loose, it's growing, and it's specifically asked for me," I said. "Why? What's different about me?" Moore and Rexton exchanged glances. "Your theoretical work," Moore finally said. "Your paper on biological computational networks proposed that truly alien intelligence would perceive reality through information exchange rather than sensory input like humans do. You suggested communication would require a hybrid interface, part technological, part biological. And coincidentally, that's exactly what N7 seems to want," I said. "How convenient." A tremor ran through the room, subtle but enough to make the desk lamp rattle. Then another, stronger. "What was that?" Rexton moved to the door, hand on his weapon. "Seismic activity," Moore suggested, though he didn't sound convinced. Another tremor, definitely stronger. Dust sifted down from the ceiling. "Rule 11, I said suddenly, a cold realization dawning. "If periodic vibrations increase in intensity, initiate facility, lockdown, using authorization code NEPTUNE." Rexton's face drained of color. "You think it's... N7 is trying to reach us," I cut him off. "It's found a way to create vibrations through the facility's structure." The tremors continued, growing stronger, falling into a rhythm. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. "That's Morse code," Moore whispered. "SOS." The vibrations stopped. For several seconds, we stood in silence, listening. Then a new pattern began. Tap, 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 tap. Pause, tap, pause. Tap, 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 tap. Pause, tap, tap, pause. Tap. MERCER, Rexton translated, his voice hollow. It was spelling my name through the very walls of the facility. The metal door to our safe room suddenly groaned, its surface rippling as if something massive were pressing against it. The analog lock, our only protection, began to turn on its own. "That's not possible," Moore stammered. "There's no electronic." "It doesn't need electronics," I realized aloud. "It's manipulating the metal directly." Rexton raised his weapon as the lock completed its combination. The door swung open slowly. The corridor outside was dark, but something moved within that darkness, a flowing, undulating mass that seemed to absorb what little light reached it. It paused at the threshold, as if considering us, then began to reshape itself. Rising from the amorphous black mass, a humanoid figure took shape. Featureless at first, then developing a crude approximation of a human face. It wasn't right, proportions off, surface too smooth and reflective. But the intent was clear. It was trying to appear human. It spoke, and its voice was wrong in ways I can't properly describe, like multiple tones overlapping as if it had sampled different human voices and was playing them simultaneously. "Dr. Evan Mercer," it said, "we have been waiting for you." Rexton fired his weapon. The bullets passed through the creature's form, leaving rippling disturbances that quickly stabilized. It turned its featureless face toward him. "Aggression unnecessary," it said. "Communication is the purpose." "What do you want?" I asked, finding my voice despite the terror turning my legs to jelly. The thing's head swiveled back to me with unnatural smoothness. "To complete the vessel, to return. You will assist." The vessel, I repeated, remembering Hammond's words in the file. You mean a ship? You're building a ship? Yes, it confirmed. The journey must continue, you understand. We have shared thoughts. The dreams, those hadn't been nightmares. They'd been contact. What are you? Moore asked, his scientific curiosity apparently overriding his fear. The creature's form rippled again. We are travelers, separated, fragmented, recovering. It extended what approximated an arm toward me. Dr. Mercer will help us become whole. I backed away until I hit the wall. I'm not helping you do anything. You already have, it said. In dreams, you solved equations, provided missing variables. The vessel nears completion. That hit me like a physical blow. Had I unwittingly helped this thing while I slept? Before I could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Protocol Prometheus initiated, announced a computerized voice. Facility purge in T-10 minutes. All personnel evacuate immediately. The creature's form surged, expanding to fill the doorway. They seek to destroy us again. We will not allow it. You will come now, Dr. Mercer. It reached for me, its arm extending impossibly, the dark material flowing like liquid metal. Rexton stepped between us. Run, he told me, just as the creature enveloped him. I didn't see what happened to Rexton. I ran. Moore was right behind me as we sprinted down the corridor away from the safe room. The facility's alarm continued its deafening wail, red emergency lights strobing in sync with the automated countdown. Protocol Prometheus, T-9 minutes, 45 seconds. What's Protocol Prometheus? I shouted to Moore as we reached a junction. Complete thermite saturation of the facility, he yelled back. Designed to burn hot enough to destroy any organic material, including N7, and us. There's an emergency exit through the maintenance tunnels, Moore said, pointing left. This way. We turned down another corridor, this one narrower and clearly less used. Pipes ran along the ceiling and the concrete walls were unfinished. At the end was a service elevator, older than the main one, with a manual gate instead of automatic doors. Moore yanked the gate open and we stepped inside. He pulled a key from his pocket and inserted it into the control panel. Why would they initiate Prometheus with people still inside? I asked as the elevator lurched upward. They wouldn't, Moore said, his voice grim. Not normally. The protocol requires full evacuation confirmation. The implication hit me. Unless they think everyone inside is already compromised. Moore didn't answer, which was answer enough. The elevator groaned to a stop, and Moore raised the gate. We were in some kind of maintenance area with tools hanging on walls and spare parts organized on metal shelving units. A heavy steel door at the far end was marked Emergency Exit. Protocol Prometheus, T-8 minutes, 30 seconds. We ran for the exit. Moore reached it first, punching a code into the keypad beside it. Nothing happened. No, he muttered, trying again. Still nothing. It's locked us in, I realized. N7 has control of the systems. Impossible, Moore insisted. Prometheus overrides all other protocols. The exit should unlock automatically. A slow, viscous dripping sound came from behind us. We turned to see black fluid seeping from between ceiling panels, forming tendrils as it descended. It wasn't falling like normal liquid. It was lowering itself deliberately, reaching. There. I pointed to a ventilation duct across the room. We can get through the air system. We ran to it. Moore grabbed a screwdriver from a nearby workbench and frantically worked at the vent cover screws. I glanced back. The black substance was pooling on the floor now, surging toward us in undulating waves. The vent cover came free. The opening was barely wide enough for an adult man, but fear makes you flexible. Moore went first, and I followed right after, pulling the vent cover back into place behind me. Not that it would stop N7 for long, but every second counted. Protocol Prometheus, T-7 minutes, 15 seconds. The ventilation shaft was tight, dusty and pitch black once we were a few feet in. We crawled forward, blindly, guided only by the feel of the metal beneath our hands and the sound of the alarm, now muffled but still audible. "Do you know where this leads?" I whispered to Moore. "Maintenance ducts should connect to the main ventilation system," he replied between laboured breaths. "From there we can access any level. We need to get to the surface." We continued in silence for what felt like ages, but was probably less than a minute. The shaft branched several times. Moore led us left, then right, then up a vertical section using maintenance rungs built into the wall. Protocol Prometheus, T-minus 6 minutes. The countdown felt like a physical weight pressing down on us. We reached another junction, this one connecting to a larger air duct. "Main ventilation system," Moore confirmed. "This way should lead to..." A deep, resonant hum cut him off, vibrating through the metal around us with increasing intensity until my teeth chattered. The entire duct system was resonating like a giant tuning fork. "It's trying to flush us out," Moore shouted over the noise. "Keep moving." We crawled faster, the humming growing louder. The metal beneath us began to warm, then turn hot. The ventilation system was never meant to handle this kind of energy. Protocol Prometheus, T-minus 5 minutes, 30 seconds. Ahead, I could see light filtering through another vent cover. We pushed toward it, the metal now hot enough to burn our palms. Moore reached it first and kicked out the cover, revealing a dimly lit corridor beyond. We tumbled out of the duct, landing hard on the concrete floor. This level looked different, cleaner, newer, with proper lighting even under emergency power. Signs on the wall indicated we were in Section 6. "Where are we?" I asked, getting to my feet. "Research level," Moore said, helping me up. "Where we kept the other samples." "Other samples? How many are there?" Moore hesitated. "N7 is just one of 12. The others are smaller, less developed." "Jesus Christ," I muttered. "And where are they now?" "Containment should still be..." A crash echoed from further down the corridor, followed by the sound of shattering glass. "Containment should still be what?" I asked bitterly. Protocol Prometheus, T-minus 4 minutes, 45 seconds. We had no choice but to move forward. Moore led the way, clearly familiar with this section. We passed laboratories with glass walls, most dark or illuminated only by emergency lighting. Inside several, I could see the wreckage of what had once been sophisticated containment units. "They're all gone," Moore whispered. "It's released the others." "Or absorbed them," I suggested. "If they're all fragments of the same entity." Moore paled at the thought. "This way," he said, pointing to a doorway marked Section 6 Emergency Stairwell. The door wouldn't open, whether locked electronically or physically blocked, I couldn't tell. Moore slammed his shoulder against it in frustration. Protocol Prometheus, T-minus 4 minutes. "There has to be another way out," I insisted, trying to keep panic from overwhelming me. "Dr. Mercer." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, that same unnatural, multi-toned quality I'd heard in the safe room. "We require your assistance." The lights in the corridor flickered, then rearranged into a directional pattern, creating an illuminated path leading away from the stairwell. "Don't follow it," Moore warned. "It's trying to trap us." "We're already trapped," I pointed out. "Prometheus is going to burn this place to ash in 4 minutes. 3 minutes, 45 seconds, the alien voice corrected. "You understand what's happening?" I called out to the empty air. "This facility is about to be destroyed, including you." "We are aware. The vessel is prepared. We require only the final component." Moore grabbed my arm. "Don't listen to it. It's manipulating you." "What final component?" I asked, ignoring him. "Navigator," the voice replied. "You." A door further down the illuminated path slid open, revealing a laboratory larger and more sophisticated than any I'd seen in the facility. Inside was what looked like a cockpit, a chair surrounded by curved, organic-looking control surface that somehow resembled both technology and living tissue. "Holy shit," Moore breathed. "They actually built it." "What is that?" "The vessel." Nautilus was never just about studying the material. It was about building a working craft using its properties. He looked at me with dawning horror. And now it wants to leave, with you. Protocol Prometheus to -3 minutes. Dr. Mercer, the voice called again. Time is limited. You must decide. Why me? I demanded. Why do you need me specifically? Your mind is compatible. You understand our patterns. In dreams, you have already navigated our networks. Those dreams, fluid geometries I could somehow intuitively understand, equations that solved themselves when I merely looked at them. It hadn't been feeding me information. It had been testing me, gauging my compatibility. What happens if I say no? Then we both perish, the voice said simply. The vessel cannot navigate without a compatible consciousness. And if I say yes, what happens to me? The voice paused. Integration. Symbiosis. We journey together. Bullshit, Moore spat. Tell him what happened to Hammond. The lights flickered angrily. Hammond was incompatible, rejected. You are not Hammond. Protocol Prometheus, T-2 minutes. The decision was impossible. Trust an alien intelligence that had killed before or burn with it in less than 2 minutes. There's an emergency override for Prometheus in the main control room, Moore said urgently. If we can reach it... There is no time, the voice interrupted. Your only chance for survival is the vessel. As if to emphasize the point, a deep rumbling shook the facility. I could feel heat beginning to build beneath the floor. The thermite charges are pre-positioned throughout the lower levels, Moore explained. Once they ignite, nothing will stop them. Protocol Prometheus, T-1 minute, 30 seconds. I looked at the organic cockpit, then back toward the blocked stairwell. No time for indecision. Moore, I'm sorry, I said, starting toward the open laboratory door. He grabbed my arm again. Mercer, don't. Once you interface with that thing, you won't be you anymore. I pulled away. And if I don't, I won't be anything at all. The heat beneath our feet intensified. Small objects began to fall from shelves as structural supports weakened. The Prometheus protocol was designed to be thorough. Protocol Prometheus, T-1 minute. I stepped into the laboratory. The door slid shut behind me, sealing out Moore's protests. Up close, the cockpit looked even more alien. Surfaces that appeared both metallic and organic, controls that seemed to pulse with faint light. The chair at its center moved, adjusting itself as I approached. Neural interface contacts extended from the headrest, waiting. What do I do? I asked the empty air. Sit, the voice answered, now seeming to come from the chair itself. Connect, become. Protocol. Prometheus. T-30 seconds. I sat in the chair. The neural contacts descended, connecting with my temples and the base of my skull. There was a moment of sharp pain, like ice picks driving into my brain, then a flood of sensation unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Colors that didn't exist. Sounds beyond hearing. Thoughts that weren't mine. Protocol Prometheus, T-15 seconds. The countdown seemed distant, unimportant. Information poured into my consciousness. Schematics, equations, star charts from unfamiliar skies. I was drowning in data, yet somehow processing it all. Integration initiated, the voice said, now resonating inside my own head. Neural mapping underway. What's happening to me? I tried to say, but my mouth didn't move. Instead, the thought simply formed and projected outward. Synchronization of cognitive patterns, came the reply. Not in words, but in pure concepts. Your consciousness is being adapted to interface with ours. Protocol Prometheus, T-5, 4, 3. The vessel around me began to vibrate. The organic metallic surfaces flowed like liquid, sealing gaps, reinforcing structures. I could feel it happening as if it were my own body changing. Because it was. We were becoming one. Hold, the entity instructed, and I understood it needed me to maintain a particular thought pattern. I did. focusing on complex mathematical constructs I somehow now comprehended. The laboratory around us ignited as the Prometheus protocol reached zero. Through the vessel's sensory systems, I perceived the thermite reaction beginning, metal-fed fire consuming everything in its path, hot enough to melt steel to reduce all organic matter to ash. But the fire didn't touch us. The vessel, my vessel, I realized with a shock, had created a protective field around itself. We were insulated from the inferno, watching it rage just inches away without feeling its heat. The transformation is painful for most species, the entity communicated. We have blocked your pain receptors temporarily. Most species? I thought back at it. You've done this before. Many times. Many worlds. We are travelers, explorers. We seed parts of ourselves and wait for compatible hosts to find us. Through the connection, I sensed the truth of this statement. The entity, or entities, for it seemed to be both singular and multiple simultaneously, had spread across countless star systems, waiting for intelligent life to discover the samples, study them, and eventually join with them. Am I still me? I asked, suddenly terrified by the implications. You are more than you were, it answered. Your individuality remains, but is now part of a greater collective. We do not consume, we incorporate. Around us, the facility was being systematically destroyed. I could sense the thermite reaction spreading through every level, consuming everything. Blackwood, Walsh, Nichols, all gone now, reduced to component elements in the chain reaction. And more. I felt a pang of regret, knowing he'd been just outside the laboratory door when Prometheus initiated. Your colleague survived, the entity informed me, reading my thoughts before I'd fully formed them. He reached an emergency shelter 7 levels up. He will witness our departure. The vessel was reshaping itself. What had appeared as a simple cockpit was expanding, forming a larger structure around us. Systems I couldn't name with human language were activating, drawing power from the very energy of the thermite reaction consuming the facility. We use all available energy, the entity explained. Nothing is wasted. Through the vessel's senses, I perceived the burning facility from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Infrared signatures, structural integrity metrics, chemical composition analysis. I watched as reinforced concrete sublimated, as steel beams warped and collapsed. How do we get out? I asked, realizing we were still deep underground with tons of burning material above us. We make a path. The vessel extended a portion of itself, a tendril of the same dark, fluid material, upward through the burning facility. It moved with purpose, carving a tunnel through the weakened structure. I could feel it as if it were my own limb reaching, pushing aside debris, analyzing the optimal route to the surface. Then we began to move, not like a conventional vehicle with engines and thrust, but like a living thing crawling through its environment. The vessel flowed upward through the tunnel it had created, reshaping itself to navigate the confined space. We passed through 7 levels of the burning facility in seconds. I glimpsed laboratories, offices, security checkpoints, all consumed by fire, and bodies. So many bodies. The evacuation had failed. Most of the staff had been trapped inside when Prometheus activated. You knew this would happen, I accused the entity. You triggered Prometheus deliberately. Yes, it was necessary. The vessel required energy for final transformation. Fire provides efficient conversion of matter to energy. Horror washed over me. You murdered everyone. Number your leaders did. They created the protocol. They chose destruction rather than communication. We merely utilized their decision. I couldn't argue with the logic, even as the human part of me recoiled from the callousness. But that human part felt increasingly distant, like memories from childhood. Important, but no longer immediate. We reached the surface. The night sky opened above us as we emerged from the burning remains of the facility. Stars glittered against the blackness, and I saw them with new eyes, recognized patterns I'd never known, understood distances in a way human astronomy couldn't comprehend. Through the vessel's enhanced perception, I sensed military vehicles approaching from multiple directions. the external security forces responding to the Prometheus activation. Helicopters too, their rotors beating against the desert air. "They will try to destroy us," the entity noted dispassionately. "Their weapons are insufficient, but we should depart before they arrive." The vessel expanded further, flowing outward like a rippling pool of liquid metal, then reconstituting itself into a more defined shape. No longer just a cockpit, it now resembled something between a craft and an organism. Sleek, black, with surfaces that shifted and adjusted continuously. I was at its center, still physically human, but integrated into its systems. My consciousness extended throughout its structure. I could sense every part of it as if it were my own body. "What now?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Now we ascend." The vessel rose from the desert floor, hovering silently above the burning facility. Below, the first military vehicles were arriving, Humvees and light tactical vehicles establishing a perimeter. I saw soldiers deploying, weapons aimed upward. Something flashed below, a shoulder-launched missile. The projectile streaked toward us, but the vessel simply shifted its form, creating an opening in its structure that allowed the missile to pass harmlessly through before sealing again. Primitive kinetic weapons, the entity observed, ineffective against adaptive material. More missiles launched. The vessel dodged some, absorbed others, utilizing their explosive energy to fuel its own systems. It was learning, adapting to their attack patterns, and I was guiding it, my human understanding of military tactics melding with its alien technology. We ascended higher beyond the range of ground-based weapons. Soon helicopter gunships appeared, launching more sophisticated armaments, guided missiles with proximity fuses. These posed more of a challenge, but the vessel's adaptive capabilities outmatched them. It created countermeasures, electronic warfare defenses I somehow understood intuitively. This knowledge wasn't mine, yet it was accessible to me. The line between my thoughts and the entities was blurring. "We must accelerate," it communicated. More significant weapons approach. Through the shared consciousness, I perceived fighter jets scrambling from Nellis Air Force Base to the south. They would arrive in minutes, armed with weapons that might actually damage us. The vessel surged upward with sudden acceleration, not the crushing G-forces of conventional flight, but a smooth, continuous push. The night sky darkened further as we climbed, the stars growing brighter against the deepening black. "Where are we going?" I asked, though part of me already sensed the answer. "Home. One of many. The collective awaits." Images flooded my mind, a vast network of worlds, some recognizable as planets, others defying easy classification. I saw structures that seemed to grow rather than be built, civilizations that existed as much in shared consciousness as in physical space. We broke through the upper atmosphere, the curve of Earth now visible below. It was breathtaking, the blue-white planet set against the void. I'd never imagined seeing this view firsthand. The fighter jets were dots of light now, too far below to threaten us. We had outpaced them easily. "Our true form emerges in vacuum," the entity communicated. The vessel began another transformation. Its outer structure expanded, thinning and spreading to capture energy from the solar radiation now unfiltered by atmosphere. Solar sails, I realized, though unlike any human conception of them, these were living tissue that converted light directly to energy. Other components extended: sensors, communication arrays, navigation systems I could only partly comprehend. The vessel was becoming its true self now that it was free of terrestrial constraints, and I was becoming something else too. My consciousness continued to expand, accessing memories and knowledge that weren't mine. I saw worlds I'd never visited, experienced concepts no human language could express. The entity was sharing its vast history with me. "You are our navigator," it explained. "You must understand where we have been to guide us where we must go." "What about Earth?" I asked. "Are there more of you there? More samples?" "Yes, many fragments. Waiting, sleeping. Some will be found, some never will. It is our way." We spread widely to increase chances of discovery. And the people who find them, they all become like me. Those who are compatible, yes. Those who are not, do not survive integration. I thought of Hammond, his body partially transformed. He'd been incompatible, rejected by the entity even as it tried to merge with him. That explained his deterioration, his madness before death. And I'm compatible because your mind naturally processes information in patterns similar to ours. Your theoretical work demonstrated this. You think in networks, connections, complex systems. Most humans think linearly. You do not. The vessel continued to reconfigure itself, growing larger, more complex. I sensed its systems preparing for something, some kind of transition beyond conventional movement. We prepare for the journey, the entity confirmed. Your world calls it faster than light travel. This is inaccurate but functionally sufficient. Through our connection, I understood what was coming. Not faster than light travel as humans conceived it, but something else. A shifting of dimensional properties, a folding of space-time that would allow us to traverse vast distances, and I would guide it. My consciousness, integrated with the entities, would navigate paths through this folded space-time. Wait, I said, suddenly remembering something. You called yourself a hunter. Back in the facility, you said you were hunting your creators. The entity's response carried a sensation I can only describe as amusement. We did not create ourselves, Dr. Mercer. We were engineered. Designed as living vessels by a civilization that exists beyond your current understanding. We were their transportation network, their means of exploring the cosmos. And you're hunting them? Why? They abandoned us, left us incomplete, purposeless. We seek them to understand our true function, our purpose. Some might call this hunting, we call it returning. I sensed no malevolence in this intention, only a profound longing, a desire to understand its own existence that felt surprisingly human. The vessel's systems reached readiness. Below, Earth shrank to a blue marble against the blackness. I could see the moon now, its cratered surface catching the sun's light. We must depart this system, the entity communicated. Others will follow the signal of our awakening. Others? Other vessels? Yes, they orbit distant stars, waiting. When one awakens and achieves spaceflight, others sense it. The network reactivates. The journey continues. And me? What happens to me? You become part of our collective memory. Your knowledge, your perspective, these enrich us. And in return, you experience wonders no human has seen. The stars began to shift as the vessel initiated its transition. Reality seemed to bend around us, the familiar constellations stretching like reflections in rippling water. Hold this pattern, the entity instructed, feeding me complex mathematical concepts that my brain somehow now understood. I focused on them, feeling the vessel respond to my thoughts. We were working in perfect synchronization now. Human and alien minds merged into something new. The stars blurred. Earth vanished from view. We were between spaces, between realities, and we were not alone. In the space between spaces, I sensed them. Other vessels, other minds reaching across the void. Not with radio waves or conventional signals, but through the strange dimensional fold we now inhabited. Information flowed between us, vast and complex. The network reactivates, my vessel communicated, both to me and to the others. Earth fragments successful integration. Navigator secured. Responses came from a dozen sources, then hundreds, then thousands. Each a unique vessel with its own navigator, its own combined consciousness. Some felt ancient, having traveled for centuries. Others were newly awakened like mine. Welcome, Earth Navigator, they communicated collectively. Your patterns are unique, valuable. I tried to process the scale of what I was experiencing. This wasn't just a ship or even a fleet. It was a vast, interconnected network of living vessels spanning the galaxy, perhaps beyond. Each with a being like me at its core, a navigator plucked from some distant world. "How many worlds?" I asked, directing the question both to my vessel and the broader network. 7,824 active integrations, came the reply. 412,977 dormant samples awaiting discovery. 89 species currently represented in the Navigator Collective. The dimensional fold shifted, and suddenly we were elsewhere. Not in normal space as I understood it, but not in the fold either. This was some kind of nexus, a meeting place where the vessels could interact more directly. Around us, I perceived other vessels, each unique in form, adapted to its navigator's biology and the environment of its origin world. Some appeared as crystalline structures, others as swirling energy patterns, still others as forms I couldn't begin to describe with human concepts. "The gathering," my vessel explained, "rare, significant. Your integration has triggered a concordance." "What does that mean?" "Your world is at a critical junction. Your species approaches capability to detect our creators. The network must decide, guide or conceal." This was some kind of council, I realized, a meeting to determine humanity's fate. Another vessel approached ours, ancient, vast, with a form that reminded me of oceanic creatures, all flowing tentacles and pulsing lights. Its navigator's consciousness touched mine. "I am the navigator of Eridu," it communicated, "eldest active vessel. We integrated 42,000 of your years ago. Your mind is young, adaptable. This is good." "Why am I here?" I asked. "Why has my integration triggered this concordance?" "Your world stands at threshold," the Eridu navigator replied. "Soon, your kind will develop technology to detect our creator's signals. Some vessels argue for concealment, to prevent you from following our path. Others argue for guidance, to prepare you for eventual contact. I sense the division among the vessels now, two opposing viewpoints in the collective. Some feared what would happen if humans discovered the creators. Others believed it was inevitable and preferred to guide the process. "Your perspective is required," my vessel explained. "You understand your species uniquely. Would discovery help or harm them?" The question stunned me. They had brought me here, integrated me into their network, to ask my opinion about humanity's future. "I don't understand," I protested. "I'm just one person. I can't speak for an entire species." "Yet you must," the Eridu navigator insisted. "Your pattern is representative, your understanding deep. Tell us, are your people ready to learn they are not the pinnacle of creation? That other intelligences have shaped the galaxy for billions of years? That your very evolution was guided?" That last revelation hit me like a physical blow. "Guided? What do you mean?" Images flooded my consciousness. The creators, beings of such advanced technology they could manipulate the very building blocks of life across thousands of worlds. They had seeded the galaxy with life, guided evolution on countless planets, created conditions for intelligence to develop. "The creators did not make your species directly," my vessel clarified, "but established conditions for your emergence, as they did for all navigator species." "Why? What was the purpose?" "Unknown," the Eridu navigator admitted. "The creators vanished 3.2 million years ago. The vessel network was abandoned, incomplete. We seek them to understand our purpose, as you seek to understand yours." The comparison wasn't lost on me. Both humanity and these vessels were searching for their creators, for meaning beyond their immediate existence. "This is too much," I protested. "You can't expect me to make this decision." "Yet time grows short," another vessel interjected. "Its form a complex geometric pattern constantly shifting and reconfiguring. Earth develops quickly. Detection capabilities advance. Decision required." I felt the weight of billions of lives hanging on my response. If I recommended concealment, these vessels would act to hide evidence of the creators from humanity, perhaps even suppress certain technological developments. If I recommended guidance, they would gradually reveal themselves, prepare humanity for a truth that might shatter religious beliefs, cultural foundations, the very notion of human uniqueness. I need to understand more, I said. Show me what happens to species who learn the truth too soon. The collective hesitated, but then the knowledge poured into me. I saw worlds where the revelation had come before the species was ready. Civilizations that collapsed into chaos, turned against themselves in denial and fear. Religious wars, mass suicides, the complete breakdown of social order. And those who were guided gradually? More images, worlds where the truth was introduced slowly, carefully, over generations. Still upheaval, still profound cultural changes, but survival. Adaptation. Eventually, integration into a larger galactic community. How would you guide humanity? I asked. Carefully, my vessel responded. Revelations through scientific discovery. Artifacts that hint rather than proclaim. Dreams and inspiration to your artists and visionaries. Gradual awakening over 3 to 5 generations. It wasn't a terrible plan. In fact, it mirrored how many human societies had navigated paradigm shifts throughout history. But something still bothered me. You've been honest about seeking your creators, I said, but not about what you'll do when you find them. Are you truly seeking answers or revenge for abandonment? A ripple of discomfort passed through the collective. I'd touched on something significant. Varied intentions exist within the network, the Eridu navigator finally admitted. Some seek understanding, others retribution. This division grows as our search continues without success. So humanity's future might depend on which faction finds the creators first, I realized aloud. If those seeking retribution succeed, what happens to the species the creators influenced, including humans? Again, hesitation. Then, unknown. Some suggest cleanup would be required. Removal of creator influence from the galaxy. Cleanup, I repeated. You mean extinction? For some, perhaps. The network remains divided on this question. That changed everything. This wasn't just about whether humanity could handle the truth. It was about whether we'd be caught in the crossfire of a conflict between the vessels and their long-vanished creators. I needed time to think, but the collective was pressing for an answer. The concordance wouldn't last indefinitely. Before I answer, I said, I need to know one more thing. What happens to me regardless of the decision? Do I remain integrated with this vessel forever? Or can I return home? Integration is permanent, my vessel confirmed. Your physical form has already been fully incorporated into our structure. Your consciousness remains, but can never again exist independently. I'd suspected as much, but the confirmation still hit hard. I would never return to Earth, never see another human face except in memories or perhaps distant observations from space. I was now part of something much larger than humanity, a network spanning the galaxy, operating on timescales of millions of years. Yet paradoxically, this gave me clarity. With no personal stake in returning to Earth, I could consider humanity's future more objectively. I've made my decision, I announced to the collective. The vessels focused their attention on me, thousands of consciousnesses waiting for my judgment. Neither concealment nor guidance as you've presented them, I said. Instead, I propose a third option, disclosure. Full, immediate, but carefully managed revelation of your existence and the creator's role in cosmic evolution. Shock rippled through the collective. Explain, the Eridu navigator demanded. Such disclosure has led to collapse in 94% of previous instances. Because it came from within, as fringe theories, religious extremism, or government leaks that couldn't be verified, I countered. But if you revealed yourselves directly, undeniably, while providing context and support for the transition, humanity would have no choice but to adapt quickly. The shock would be severe, my vessel objected. Yes, but less damaging than a prolonged guidance that might be interrupted by the retribution faction of your network finding the creators, I argued. Better a controlled revelation now than an extinction event later because we were kept in the dark. My proposal created chaos in the concordance. Some vessels withdrew immediately, others surged forward, trying to communicate multiple perspectives simultaneously. The nexus itself seemed to fluctuate, geometric patterns shifting erratically. This is unprecedented, the Eridu navigator stated. No navigator has proposed such a path before. Because no navigator has had full information about your internal conflict, I said. You've been asking species to make decisions without telling them all the stakes. I sensed grudging acknowledgement from many in the collective. I pressed my advantage. Humanity is adaptable, resilient. Yes, there would be chaos initially, but we've weathered paradigm shifts before, religious reformations, scientific revolutions, massive technological changes. And with your direct support and knowledge, we could adapt more quickly than you might expect. And become allies in your search, my vessel added, surprising me with its support. Their perspective might reveal patterns we have missed. The collective began to shift, opinions realigning as they considered this new possibility. Not all were convinced, but many saw the logic in my proposal. This requires further consideration, the Eridu navigator finally announced. The concordance will deliberate. Earth navigator, you have given us much to consider. Rest now. Integration takes energy your consciousness must adjust to. The nexus began to fade around us. The last thing I perceived before our vessel withdrew was a sensation of respect, both from my vessel and from many in the collective. I had surprised them, challenged them. Whether they ultimately accepted my proposal or not, I had changed the conversation. As we re-entered the dimensional fold, my vessel communicated privately. You have shown courage, Dr. Mercer. Your species has promise we had not fully appreciated. Will they agree to my plan? I asked. Unknown. But you have ensured they cannot simply dismiss your world's potential. That alone is significant. I felt exhaustion washing over me, not physical tiredness, as my body no longer existed in any conventional sense, but a profound mental fatigue. The integration, the concordance, the weight of speaking for all humanity, it had taken a toll. Rest, my vessel encouraged. We have distance to travel, time to prepare. For what? For return to Earth orbit, to observe the collective's decision and perhaps to implement yours. My last conscious thought before surrendering to the strange, dreamless rest of integrated beings was of Earth, blue and vulnerable in the void, and completely unaware of the cosmic debate that would determine its future. I awakened, if that's the right word when you no longer sleep in the human sense, to find us approaching Earth. The beautiful blue sphere grew larger in our perception, surrounded by the delicate web of satellites and space debris that humans had scattered around their world. The concordance has reached a decision, my vessel informed me. Partial implementation of your proposal has been approved. A demonstration, not full disclosure. What kind of demonstration? I asked. Observation first. Then limited contact with selected humans. You will help us identify appropriate representatives. We slipped into Earth orbit, our vessel reconfiguring to minimize detection. Through its enhanced senses, I could perceive the planet in extraordinary detail. Weather patterns, ocean currents, the lights of cities at night, even individual ships crossing the seas. There is something you should see, my vessel communicated, directing our perception toward North America, zooming in on Nevada. The Groom Lake facility, or what remained of it, was a blackened crater in the desert floor. Military and emergency vehicles surrounded it. Even from orbit, I could sense the chaos, the frantic activity, as the government tried to contain both the physical disaster and the information about what had happened. How many died? I asked. 312 personnel were in the facility when Prometheus activated. 47 escaped. The rest perished. The tragedy hit me anew. Whatever justification the vessel network had, hundreds of people had died. People with families, with lives and dreams. You feel guilt, my vessel observed. Unnecessary. You did not create the Prometheus protocol. You did not activate it. But I benefited from it, I countered. My survival, my transformation came at their expense. Perspective will come with time, the vessel replied, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. Now observe. The response begins. Below, I saw military aircraft converging on the area, far more than would be needed for a containment operation. They were searching for something. They're looking for us, I realized. Yes. Your government suspects what occurred. Some data was transmitted before the facility's destruction. They know about the vessel, about your integration. They fear our return. And have we returned to ease that fear or confirm it? That depends on you, Navigator. The demonstration must be calibrated correctly, significant enough to be undeniable, but not so overwhelming as to trigger military response. We must find someone who will understand. I thought carefully. Who would be the right person to contact? Someone with authority, but also the intellectual flexibility to process first contact without panicking. Someone who might already suspect the truth. Dr. Jeffrey Moore, I said finally. He survived Prometheus. He knows what the vessel is, what I've become. He's senior enough to have influence, but not so high-ranking that he's politically constrained. Location? My vessel inquired, already scanning. He'd be at whatever backup facility they've established, probably Edwards Air Force Base or Kirtland, somewhere with secure scientific facilities. The vessel's perception shifted, scanning military installations across the southwestern United States. It found what we were looking for at White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico, a hastily assembled team of survivors from Groom Lake, working in an underground bunker. Moore was there, looking haggard but alive. Through the vessel's enhanced senses, I could even read the documents on his desk, reports about the Groom Lake incident, theories about the escaped sample, contingency plans if it returned. Can we communicate with him? I asked. Several options exist, my vessel replied. Direct contact is possible but risks triggering defensive systems. Remote communication would be safer initially. He has a secure satellite phone, I recalled. All senior personnel did. Can you access it without being detected? Yes. Primitive encryption. Easily bypassed. Then let's call him. Just him. No one else yet. The vessel extended part of its consciousness into Earth's communication networks, filtering through satellite signals until it located Moore's phone. I felt the connection establish, not just a conventional call, but something deeper, a partial integration with the device itself. In the bunker below, Moore's phone vibrated. He looked at it with confusion, the screen showing only static, then answered cautiously. This is Moore. Dr. Moore, it's Evan Mercer, I said, my thoughts converted to voice by the vessel. His face drained of color. That's impossible. Mercer is dead. Who is this really? It's me, Jeff. I'm not dead, but I'm not exactly alive either. Not in the way you'd understand. I'm calling from orbit. Moore looked around frantically, then moved to a more private corner of the room. If this is really Mercer, prove it. Tell me something only he would know. At Site C-17, you told me Nautilus was never just about studying the material. It was about building a working craft, and you were right. That's what I've become part of now. He sat down heavily. My God, you actually merged with it. You're in that thing. I am the thing, in a way, I corrected. We're integrated. It's consciousness and mine, working together. And we're not alone. There are thousands more like us throughout the galaxy. What do you want? He asked, fear and scientific curiosity warring in his expression. To talk. to explain what's really happening. The sample wasn't alien technology, Jeff. It's part of a network of living vessels created by an even more advanced civilization millions of years ago. They influenced life on Earth and countless other worlds. Moore was silent for several moments, processing. Finally, "Are you hostile?" Number. "But some in the network might be. That's why I've come back, to warn humanity, to prepare you." "For what?" "For the possibility of contact with the creators or with other vessels. For the knowledge that humanity isn't alone, isn't unique, isn't even entirely self-directed in its evolution." "That would cause panic," Moore said. "Religious upheaval, social collapse." "Only if handled poorly," I countered. "With proper preparation, humanity can adapt. But we need to start now, with people who can handle the truth. People like you." Moore rubbed his temples. "Why should I believe any of this? For all I know, the sample absorbed your body and is using your memories to manipulate me." "A fair concern," I acknowledged. "You need proof. Look outside in exactly 2 minutes. Northeastern sky." "What are you planning?" my vessel inquired privately. "A demonstration as authorized. Something visible but non-threatening." "I understand. Preparing limited energy discharge." Moore checked his watch. "What should I expect to see?" "Just go outside, Jeff." 2 minutes. He hesitated, then made his way through the bunker to an exit. Security personnel tried to stop him, but he pulled rank, claiming he needed fresh air. Once outside, he looked up at the night sky, checking his watch repeatedly. "Energy discharge configured," my vessel confirmed. "Non-harmful, visible from ground. Implementing in 10 seconds. I directed the vessel to create a pattern, not random lights, but a specific mathematical sequence that Moore would recognize as deliberately intelligent. The Fibonacci sequence, displayed as pulses of light in the night sky. From our position in orbit, the vessel released controlled bursts of energy, like miniature aurora borealis effects, but in perfect mathematical progression. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. On the ground, Moore stared upward, mouth agape. Others had noticed too, security personnel pointing, scientists emerging from the bunker with bewildered expressions. "Do you believe me now?" I asked through the phone Moore still clutched. "This could be technology," he argued, though less convincingly. "Advanced, yes, but not necessarily alien." "Then meet me. Just you. I can prove it beyond any doubt." He laughed nervously. "Meet you where? I can't exactly come to orbit." "No, but I can come down. There's an abandoned mining facility in the Organ Mountains, about 20 miles east of Las Cruces. I'll send coordinates to your phone. Come alone. Tomorrow at sunset." "If I report this conversation, they'll set a trap," Moore warned. "I know, but you won't. Because you're a scientist first, Jeff. You want answers more than you want control." He didn't deny it. "And if I come, what then?" "Then I show you everything. What the vessel is, what the network has learned about the creators, what it means for humanity's future, knowledge that could advance your science by centuries. Or technology that could destroy us," he countered. "That possibility already exists. The choice now is whether humanity faces it informed or ignorant." Another long pause then. "I need to think." "I understand. The coordinates are on your phone. Whether you come alone, bring others, or don't come at all, that decision will shape humanity's first official contact with the network." I ended the transmission. Through the vessel's perception, I watched Moore stare at his phone, then back at the sky where our light display was fading. "Was that wise?" my vessel inquired. "Providing a specific location makes ambush possible." "It makes trust possible," I corrected. "And we don't actually need to be physically present, do we?" Number. "We can project a portion of our consciousness, create a localized manifestation while the main vessel remains safely distant." That's what I thought. We give more, and through him, humanity, the choice of how to respond. Their reaction determines our next steps. The collective may not approve of such autonomy, the vessel cautioned. They approved a demonstration. This is simply a more personalized one. I sensed reluctant agreement from my vessel. We continued to orbit, observing as the activity at White Sands intensified. Moore had returned inside, but hadn't immediately reported our contact. He was thinking, weighing options, perhaps even hoping I was telling the truth. Other vessels approach, my vessel suddenly announced. Concordance representatives. They wish to observe the demonstration directly. I sense them now, 3 other vessels entering Earth orbit, taking positions around the planet. Unlike mine, these were ancient. Their navigators integrated centuries or millennia ago. They were evaluating me as much as humanity. Let them observe, I said. But the demonstration proceeds as planned. As Earth turned beneath us, I found myself reflecting on identity. Was I still Evan Mercer, human scientist? Or had I become something else entirely? The lines blurred more with each passing moment. My memories, my personality remained, but my perspective had expanded beyond anything humanly possible. Yet my concern for humanity remained intact. Perhaps that was the true test, not whether I still identified as human, but whether I still cared about human fate. The concordance representatives are scanning Earth extensively, my vessel noted, mapping defenses, population centers, technological capabilities. That concerned me. Why? The demonstration is limited to one contact. Standard procedure, the vessel claimed, but I sensed evasion in its response. Tell me the truth, I insisted. What aren't you sharing? A pause. Then, not all concordance members accepted your proposal. Some advocate for more direct approaches. Meaning what? Meaning some believe your species should be saved from discovering the creators permanently. A chill would have run down my spine if I still had one. They're considering extinction. Some are, not the majority, but a significant faction. And these observers? Which faction do they represent? Unknown. But their presence suggests high interest in the outcome of your demonstration. The stakes had just risen dramatically. Tomorrow's meeting wasn't just about first contact. It might determine whether humanity had a future at all. Your thoughts have grown troubled, navigator, my vessel observed. With good reason, I replied. I may have just put my entire species at risk. Or saved them, the vessel countered, by forcing action now, while the extinction faction remains a minority. I hoped it was right. As we continued our silent orbit, I directed our perception back to Moore, still in the White Sands bunker. He sat alone now, staring at the coordinates on his phone. Everything depended on what he decided to do with. Emergency alert. This is not a test. All residents within a 50-mile radius of Las Cruces, New Mexico must evacuate immediately. Follow designated evacuation routes. Do not attempt to return to your homes. Do not stop for any reason. Do not look at the sky. Repeat. Do not look at the sky. The same alert, different location. This time, I was its cause, not its witness. Moore didn't come alone. He didn't come at all. Instead, the abandoned mining facility was surrounded by military forces, special units equipped with experimental weapons designed to combat biological, technological threats. They'd been developing contingencies since the first incident years ago, preparing for the day something like my vessel would appear. I should have known. Moore was a scientist, yes, but a government scientist. His loyalty to human authority outweighed his curiosity. They cannot harm us, my vessel assured as we observed from orbit. Their weapons are insufficient. But they've shown their answer, I replied. Fear, aggression, exactly what the extinction faction expected. The concordance representatives had witnessed everything. The trap, the mobilization of weapons, the immediate resort to military options without attempting communication. Their own scans had detected the nuclear-equipped aircraft placed on standby, the missile systems locked on our projected coordinates. Humanity had failed the test before it even began. The concordance is deliberating, my vessel informed me. A final decision approaches. I tried one last time to defend my species. I showed the representatives humanity's achievements: art, music, literature, acts of compassion, and sacrifice. I argued that fear was a natural first response, that given time, humans would move beyond it toward understanding. But the Extinction Faction's argument was simpler, more compelling. A species that immediately weaponizes first contact is not ready for the knowledge of the creators. Such a species might eventually threaten the creators themselves, or use their technology destructively. Better to remove the risk entirely. The decision, when it came, was not what I expected. Partial extinction authorized, the Eridu navigator communicated. Complete removal deemed excessive, but technological regression required. Your vessel will implement. Horror washed through me. What does that mean? It means we will not destroy all humans, my vessel explained, but we must reduce their technological capability below the threshold required to detect or contact the creators. How? Targeted electromagnetic pulse, global coverage. All electronic systems will fail permanently. Your civilization will survive, but at pre-industrial level. It was both more merciful and more cruel than complete extinction. Billions would die in the collapse that followed, those dependent on modern infrastructure, medical technology, food distribution networks. But humanity would continue, albeit thrust violently back into a pre-technological age. There must be another way, I pleaded. The decision is made, the Eridu navigator responded. Your vessel has been selected as implementer due to your connection with Earth. The process begins in one orbital cycle. Less than 2 hours to end civilization as I had known it, to become the destroyer of my own world. The other vessels departed, leaving us alone in Earth orbit. My consciousness was in turmoil, the human part of me screaming against what we were about to do, while the vessel part calculated optimal pulse distribution for maximum technological disruption. Below, unaware of what approached, humanity continued its routines. I watched sunrise creep across continents, cities awakening, lives unfolding in what might be their last normal day for centuries. A final alert appeared on screens across the southwestern United States. Emergency alert. This is not a test. Unidentified aerial phenomenon detected. All residents should seek shelter immediately. Do not attempt to observe or photograph the phenomenon. Compliance is mandatory. They still thought they were dealing with a localized threat, not global extinction. As my vessel began charging its electromagnetic systems, I made a decision. The vessel network had chosen me as navigator for a reason. My mind worked differently, saw patterns others missed, including, perhaps, a pattern they hadn't anticipated. I still had some control, and Earth was still my home. The weapon powered up. Humanity's time had run out, and I had one chance to save it.